What's up, guys? I'm Joe, and today I'm talking about the new Slash album, Living the Dream. So Slash, featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators, quite the mouthful. They are back with their third studio album, Living the Dream. Some are counting it as 4, considering Slash's 2010 solo record, which featured a variety of artists singing. For me and for many, the standout tracks on that record were the ones featuring Myles Kennedy. The songs Back from Cali and Starlight. Slash's style really seemed to vibe with Myles. I was already a big Alter Bridge fan, so I was pretty excited about the matchup. And it was something different for Myles to go into as an outlet musically, featuring a more bluesy, hard rock, the kind of stuff you would expect from Slash, basically. Following the record, Myles joined Slash on tour. They eventually announced that they were recording a full studio album together under this name, Slash, featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators, and I was definitely excited for that one. And 2012's Apocalyptic Love did not disappoint, even in the slightest. Personally, it's one of my favorite rock records to come out in recent times. I still listen to it fairly often, all the way through, not a bad track on there. Standouts like No More Heroes and Anastasia are probably some of Slash's best moments, especially on Anastasia. The lead-out solo on that track is just phenomenal. 2 albums later, we have Living the Dream, another collection of straight-ahead rockers. This one and the last, World on Fire, seemed to take a more classic rock and blues approach. While that was there on Apocalyptic Love, it sounded like Slash. There was something about that first record that had a more modern approach in its sound, kind of hard to quantify, but definitely a sound that I do prefer to the last 2 records, including this one. Not saying they're bad, but I think that first album for them was sort of lightning in a bottle, just all worked so well. What's interesting is I've noticed, reviews and comments of Living the Dream saying that the second half of the album really sort of peters out and the best stuff is on the first half. I, of course, kind of disagree with that. I think the second half of the album is what saved it for me. While I think the first half is, enjoyable, there's nothing really special about it, nothing that really was standing out to me until I got into that second half of the album. The first half still has plenty to offer. The opening track, The Call of the Wild, really kicks things into gear right away. Full throttle riffs, bombastic verses, and really just a huge vocal moment for Kennedy on the chorus. It features some of the better lyrical content, with Myles talking about kind of burning out on modern technology and wanting to get back to something more human, aka The Call of the Wild. This is a lyrical standout for me in comparison to some of the other weaker moments, especially in the first half. You have lines such as, "I was only in the game for the reasons that were wrong on my antidote," which is grammatically weird sounding and also just kind of lazy, it seems, to me anyway. Also, "Lost inside the girl," "she's a diamond, she's a pearl," that kind of stuff. Especially coming off of Myles' recent solo album, which was lyrically really powerful. Some of the stuff sounds kind of lazy, I guess. I know they go for a more classic rock kind of thing, where, lyrics weren't maybe some of the main focus, if you think of something like AC/DC. But there are some, clunky lines in quite a few of these tracks. Apart from the lyrics, though, musically, My Antidote is pretty great. It has this scratchy guitar riff that opens things up before going into a pretty awesome rocker. Serve You Right has a nice AC/DC kind of groove to it, which I like, being a fan of that band as well, while a track like Mind Your Matters is a more full-throttle, faster rock tune with a bluesy side to it. As I said, though, I was only sort of lukewarm about the record until I got into that second half, where I feel like Myles and Slash have a lot more to say. The first half is kind of like what we've come to expect from the group as far as that rock bluesy sound, while the second half they sort of change things up. The One You Loved Is Gone is a much better ballad in comparison to Lost Inside the Girl, featuring some strings, a really fantastic solo moment from Slash. Sugarcane, one of my favorites, once it gets into the verses, has this immense groove thanks to this heavy stomping guitar riff. The bass is on fire on this track and it's perfectly high up in the mix. It also has easily my favorite chorus on the album, which is just really catchy. Driving Rain is another standout. I like when bands put singles later in the album, it kind of helps with the flow for me. It doesn't feel front-loaded or anything by singles, and I do like that it comes later in the mix. That, again, has another nice driving hard rock riff to it. The Great Pretender is a cool one and a bit of a curveball musically. It kind of plays itself out as a ballad throughout most of it, but there is this sort of darkness and heaviness that kind of starts to seep into the song, but never really quite gets there. It doesn't like switch into a heavy rocker, which I think is cool. It makes for like an interesting musical effect. And I think kind of complements the lyrics, the Great Pretender, the sort of slyness and how that darker side of the song sort of creeps into it every now and then. I think musically is pretty interesting and pretty cool, and definitely something different out of the group that we haven't heard till now. And finally, the album ends with Boulevard of Broken Hearts. That's right, not Dreams. Another track that has this stadium-sized chorus to it, thanks to the soaring vocals of Myles Kennedy. I also love the very lyrical guitar moments from Slash, sort of mimicking the vocal lines. And it ends with one of my favorite solos on the album, just ending things in a very bombastic, high-energy way. So really, that second half for me is what sort of, I said save the album, I don't know. The songs on the first half were like solid. They just weren't as memorable as some of the past stuff we've heard from the band. And I do like that on the second half, they kind of change things up. Things get a little heavy here and there. Things get a little darker. Things get a little more groovy at times. The lyrics seem on par with what Myles usually has to offer as far as this group goes. And vocally, everything is really great. There are some really catchy moments. There are some really huge moments. So while I like some of those tracks on the first half, Call the Wild, Serve You Right, Mind Your Manners, things really kick into gear in the later half for me. So if you're one that thought it sort of fizzled out towards the end, maybe give it another listen. So yeah, overall, I'm glad this group is still around, still making music. I like the pairing of Slash and Myles, and I'm feeling like a 3.5 out of 5 for this one. So let me know what you think of the album in the comments, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.